Okay, everybody. Hey, Thorn for Your Heart here. Um, I'm hoping this will be the last tutorial of the series. I assume it would be. I thought about it, and there's nothing else I can really teach other than what I'm about to show you now. So thanks for hanging out and sticking around. I'm gonna try to make this one quicker than normal, and I know I say that for all of them simply because my refrigerator was giving off some weird ticking noise, and it was disrupting the mic. I don't really have a studio setup, so I try to take as much silence as I can get. I close my windows and I pretty much silence the room, minus the computer itself, fans making some noise, just so I can kind of get you a more clear tutorial. So now that my fridge, I had to unplug it to make this tutorial. I am going to try and be brief. So I'm going to knock out what I wanted to do in this project in a twofer. Meaning pretty much a 2-for-1. So we are going to touch a female head now, and with that, we are going to do is we're pretty much going to just kind of go through what we learned with the female head. But essentially, what I want to do is I want to show you how to use the face tattoos that I made for female faces. And this is strictly for female faces in this update. Maybe later on in another update, I can upload a male version that you can face tattoo. But this is just because it's all I made for the module that I made it for. And I'm just kind of releasing it now to kind of get it off my plate and get this out of the way. I can do updates and stuff like that afterward. But right now, I'm focused on getting this done. So just going to hop right into it. If we look into our regular blend files, this should show as reflective to what I put in here today. But pretty much I have what we made for the default male head. I have the same thing for the female head, and I've already renamed everything and renamed the textures, which are basically textures that I pulled out of the sample faces that I already had made for another module, and the tattoos and such like that. So all I did was I pulled out the Josephine, I think it is, face, which is down here, and the normal map. And this map, though it's named this, is renamed in this tutorial to better reflect the tutorial. But this is if you were just going to import these faces, which are human faces, half-elf faces, and Aasimar faces for females, you can just kind of copy them into your module as is, just like this, with the MDBs and the textures as is, including this texture being as it's named because it's all of those model files are associated to this texture. Okay, but for the sake of starting out brand new, I've renamed the texture to Dragon Age Female 01_T. So that's what we're going to be using for this tutorial. So your override should look like this. If you've been following along, you have all of your Dragon Age male faces in one. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to simply package them up. This is just what I'm doing. You don't have to do this. If you prefer to have all your stuff out and loose in the open like this, that's fine. But I'm just going to put male faces. Okay. And I'm only doing this also because I want to clear off some of make it look more simple here. And organization is key for modding, because if you start designing and modeling stuff, your override is going to fill up pretty quick with just random things, and your best bet to fight that off is to stay ahead of the curve on designing and not burning out, and having a good workflow is to have an organized override folder. So I'm just going to drag everything into these male faces, including the backup face. Now I'm going to create a new folder and call this female faces. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that folder, and I'm just going to drop everything that I did for the male faces, just as we did for the male faces. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste it into this folder here. And we're pretty much going to mimic what we've been doing. I'm not going to show you how to make a texture because you already learned all that in the prior tutorials. For this one, what we're going to do is we're going to open up, and I'm going to show you how to apply a face tattoo. But I'm also going to touch up a little more on the modeling aspect. So I'm going to turn this into an elf female face for you. It's not going to be a high-end elf. It's not going to be your version of an elf, because I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a popular opinion on how elves should be made, and people have different variations of them. D&D has their variation, different games. But I'm just going to do a quick touch-up of sharpening the ears and sharpening the face and stuff like that to kind of give you an idea of how to do that. Okay, so if we look in this folder, we pretty much have the MDB here as the first one. We have the backup, which is always head 1 with the skeleton. We have the face 2 with the skeleton 2 to go with it. We have the Dragon Age diffuse map, normal map, and tit map textures associated to this model file. I need to work on not moving my mouse around so much because I realized on my last tutorials I moved it around a lot. So I'm trying to take a mental note. What we do also have here is the generic iHuman diffuse normal and tit map. But if we look here on our male faces, we also have them here. So the reason I did that is I put them in this folder here is because if you were just starting out with female, you'd essentially want to copy those in first. If you were starting out with male faces, you'd copy the male versions in first. It doesn't matter. But one thing you don't want to have is 2 versions of the same texture in your override folder, because that can cause some issues. And what happens is if there's 2 versions, now because these versions are the same, the same type and the size, I don't think it'll cause an issue. But if there was ever 2 different versions with 2 different sizes, it kind of confuses the engine, so the engine automatically defaults to no version, so it just doesn't pull them out. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and erase the version off the female. Actually, I'm going to erase it off the male faces, just because of a reason I'll explain in a bit. So I'm going to erase it off the male faces. I don't need them in there. As long as they're in my override, I'm fine, because they are in my override. They are in my female version now. So I'm just, pretty much, I just moved them from here to there. I don't think that needs any more explaining. Okay, so pretty much is what we have in here is those 3 textures for the eyes. So when we open up this file, like I said, we want to make sure all the textures to this file are within the same folder, so it reflects properly in Blender. Had these stood in the male folder, they wouldn't be showing. And I just said I wouldn't explain it more, but I just did. All right. And also we have the textures to the face tattoo, which is just a diffuse map. I didn't write the D. That's fine. It doesn't always have to end with _D. It just helps you identify faster. And it's the normal map. This I did identify with an N just because it's habit. I didn't create a tint map because I don't want the face tattoos to be tinted. You can do that. And if you haven't learned how to do a tint map, there are other tutorials. There's another tutorial I have for helmets that can show you how to create a tint map and such. And I'm suddenly reminded that I will create an additional tutorial, which will be an extra, which will show you how to make a tint map for the face to add eyebrows tintable and all that sort. So that'll be the extra tutorial. This tutorial ends the actual creations tutorial series. So to go ahead and start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Neverwinter Nights 2 and see if all of this loaded up properly. Okay. Now, I did install a reshade effect on my Neverwinter Nights 2 to kind of test some stuff out. So you may notice a little glitch, this little thing pop up on my screen. Don't worry about that. I'm going to kind of remove that by pressing a shortcut key that I have here. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to New Game, New Module, Uninvited Guests, as I usually do. Okay, go to Create Character, Human, and I'm going to select Female this time. And by default, for some reason, female always reverts to like the 4th face, not the first one. So I'm going to click Next. I'm going to go back 3 hairs to go back to the 0 hair. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to the faces. So that should be 1, because this is the last face. When you reach this Thayan face, Thayan, however you want to say it, that's when you know you've reached the very last of the faces. So the next one should be the first, which is head 1. Okay. And that's our backup. So we're not touching the backup. Okay. And then we have head 2, which is the one we are going to edit. And of course the eyebrows, are all blinking there. And because head 2, we're going to open it up in the, Blender in a bit, but head 2 also has a toggle, facial hair option, which I explained in the last tutorial, which is this pretty much an F hair 01 option. For the males, I made that a beard and horns. For females, you can make it horns too, unless you want to add beards. But for this special circumstance of this face alone and this type of face, I made it a toggle hair option of a face tattoo. And I made it wrap around the face, and you can toggle it on and off. You can't color it. I made it non-colorable, but you can do that once you learn how to do the tint maps. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, this is showing here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a blend file now, and I'm going to go ahead and open up this file here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Blender. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Import, NwN2, and I have it under Desktop. Don't mind all my recents because I just have stuff in there that's been, oops, I'm sorry, not Desktop, Override, my mod faces, female faces. I'm going to open up this one, but I also want to make sure to select Remove Doubles, MDB is a head model, and Find an Armature. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and double click, or just click that and put Import up here. And there we should have this file imported. If once again, if you receive this black box, sometimes it happens, or you just get this Python script error. Just try to redo the process. It should fix it. Sometimes it just does that. All right. So what I'm going to do, as always, and I explained this in my last tutorials, is this process. I always follow it. I go ahead and turn off the skeleton. I turn off this little restrict viewpoint selection. I turn that off. And then I go ahead and go into the head, and I go into the materials section here. Okay. And I always scroll down to shadows because it resets it. This is only if you're using the Blender 2.79 and the MDB plugin for that. Okay. Same thing for eyes. I make sure I turn on shadows to receive because it always resets every time. Every time you re-import. And just to break down what we have here, we have the female head. Okay, we have the female eye, eyes, okay? And then we also have the FH Hero 1 option, which is pretty much just a bunch of faces I extracted from the head. I pulled them out a little bit in Z space. You can see the difference here, okay? And what I did is I kind of pulled them out. I turned them on. I re-extracted the UVs by... just going to go ahead and straighten this out here. And I'm going into UVs, and then I extracted all the UVs onto a map. And then this is pretty much what it looks like. I wanted to make it as flat as possible, so that way your tattoos kind of reflect as you see them. Granted, this does start stretching around the head, so of course up here, you'll start getting a little bit of a stretch, but at least it won't be as warped as it would be had I not realigned the UVs, or actually restretched them. All right, so and that was just basically fixing stretching options. So basically, this is what we're going to be working with. For this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and modify the ears. I don't want to modify the face so much, because if I modify the face, I need to modify the tattoo's face with it. So unless you're advanced, I would not recommend modifying the face if you plan to keep a tattoo. I would ultimately just get rid of it. Now, there are ways to modify both in one, but you'd have to combine these two layers together. They do have their own material, so you can if you do mix them together, you can move them all together at once and just split them by material back to how they were. If I get to the tutorial pretty quick, I'll do a quick example of that. But if time seems to be running low and my ice starts melting in my freezer, I'm more likely not going to show you. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to sharpen the ears, and I'll probably just pull some stuff out just to kind of make it look that way, and that you have an idea of how it works. Again, this is a re-explanation of the last tutorial that I touched upon towards the end to show you how to modify a face. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to show you how to change out the tattoo if you in fact want to do tattoos for your faces. Now, if you have the male face and you want to go ahead and do that, I would try and release a pulled out male version of this if I can in a later update, if I don't lose track of what I'm doing or don't get burnout, or if I can just find the time to do it. So pretty much what I'm going to do now is I'm going to edit the texture on this. You don't need to edit anything on this physically in Blender, just the texture. This is going to allow me to see it just in here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and open up that file. That file in this instance is called Tat1. If you're pulling, if for some reason you lose the file is located in preset _female _and _they and _textures, or I could just read that normally and open up that file. And I have down here all the day tats. Now they look like they're hard to see. You may see them better if you have the white background. On my screen, they're hard to see, but there's just different versions of tattoos that go on faces. These are already associated to the heads that in this pack. So if you just import these packs as is with their models and their textures, you should see these tattoos show up. And I'm doing that mouse scrolly thing again. I should stop. All right. So we're going to open up the day tat one. And the normal map, you should never have to touch. It's pretty much just a flat normal map of a face. And it's something you should never have to touch. So I'm going to go ahead and load default sizes. All right. And here we have just pretty much a square block. This is pretty much the color of the tattoo. This tattoo, the tattoo doesn't resemble here. The tattoo actually shows itself in the alpha channel. Now, the reason that being is because as we look here, everything is turned invisible. Everything is transparent. Whatever we decide to turn on in the alpha channel will reflect the tattoo design. So it's pretty much just a cutout of the tattoo. And to better define that, what's here is whatever in white in the alpha channel is going to show on the face. And because the white is bleeding through the RGB, it's taking on this color. If I were to make this box pure red, it would then be pure red all here. So it's kind of stamping out what we want to show on the face. Okay? So to edit tattoos, what we simply want to do is we want to put the stamp on here, then copy that stamp into the alpha channel. Now to do that, you'll have to there are different ways you can get, but you have to work with something transparent. You can't put a picture of a skeleton here that's wrapped in a box, i.e. a JPEG file. It has to have some sort of way you can cut out, unless you physically go through and use one of the tools here to cut out something. Now, what I mean by that is simply by grabbing a picture like thus, and I pulled up some stuff from FreePic, which is a wonderful site. I've been using it for years. I have a subscription. It's $9.99 a month, but you can pay a yearly fee of like $40, and you get unlimited access to JPEGs, mostly vectors, which is what I like to work in, and just different designs. And it's really good, really worth it if you do a lot of designing, okay, and really cheap. So pretty much what I mean is I'm going to go ahead and download a file right now and do the wrong method and correct it with the right method. Now, I'm going to use this using Illustrator. Or anything that opens up an AI or EPS file. An EPS file is more of a universal file that works with many programs. It's pretty much it's a container for a vector and or JPEG, so it's able to be either or. In Photoshop, if you import an EPS file, it flattens the file. But if you open up an EPS file in something like Illustrator or a vector-based program, it will open up the file in layers where you can pick and pull what you want to pull over to the face. Now, I'm going to click this one simply because it has something of the wrong version. It has this little gradient going around it, but the actual vector file would just have this. So this is just a preview. For preview purposes, it does this, and I'll show you what I mean. Go ahead and click, and for this I typed in tattoo, and I did search, and then I just kind of found this one. And I'm going to go ahead and click download. Now, because I'm not using the my subscription based right now. I turned it off so I can show how this works. You'll get this popped up if you're not subscription based. For most likely on a lot of them, you'll get it popped up even if you are subscription based. But you won't have access to certain files like these with the little crown, which are sometimes the better files. So I'm going to go ahead and put save. I'm going to just click open file. I'm not going to save it. There's no point. I'm going to click open file. Now you can save it if you want to save it to your folder. In this case, I just opened it up because I usually find that I only use them one time and then I move them out. And I'm just going to create a folder here inside my female faces. I'm just going to call this tattoos. Okay. I think I spelled that right. And I'm going to double click that. I'm just going to drop these two files here. I'm going to hold down shift and drop those in there, copy that in there, close that out, and then when we clear out our temp caches, it'll clear out with it. You can rename these if you want to, Spider. I'm just going to keep it like that because there's no need for me to do that at the moment because I'm not going to do more than one. When you start getting a lot of stuff in here, you want to start renaming them to better reflect what they are. So this gives you the JPEG of the actual file. It gives you a rendered down version, flattened down, but it also has this gradient because that was the preview. But what in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the wrong way. So if I just drop this in here like this, and then I place it, like I'm going to put it right there because, you know, that's where this last tattoo is. We kind of have an idea where the face is. And then if what I do is if I go ahead and do what we want to do eventually is we want to copy that stencil into the alpha channel. I'm going to highlight this by going here and pushing select pixels. I'm going to turn this off. And then if I go into the alpha channel and assuming everything is pure black, which I should do first, I'm going to make it all black, which is what it needs to be. Now everything's transparent on the face. We have a clean area. Turn this back on. Go to select pixels. I'm going to edit copy channels, go in here and type edit paste in place, special paste in place. It's going to give you this. It's going to give you the exact same thing, but there's no between that black and white. It's really going to confuse the system because what's going to happen is black is transparent, so all of this black is going to be transparent. So really, you're going to get a white block on the face, which is all whiteness and kind of in between. So whatever's white shows. So you understand what I'm saying? It won't work that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this in whole. I would spend more time explaining, but I really want to get through this. Go to select, deselect, okay? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to properly put a face tattoo. In your folder, you have a PNG file called DAI female FH fhair 01 underscore UV. This is pretty much a UVs of, this is a picture taken from the UV maps of how the UV layout is for the face. And this is going to help you better determine where to place your tattoo. So I just simply dragged and I dropped it right on top there. Okay, and I'm going to go to like something like screen to make it pop a little more. You can play around with these if you want to. Kind of create like your, or maybe difference would work. Well, no, I'm going to stick with screen. And this kind of shows you when I zoom in here, kind of shows you where the UVs are at in the face and that such and that like. So I can see it pretty clearly from here. What I want to do is I'm just going to lock that layer in. And we're not going to render with that layer in there, because if we render with that, we're going to see this all over the face, and we don't want to see those lines. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm going to go back into that folder with tattoos. I'm going to open up the EPS. Now, if you drag and drop the EPS into Photoshop, you can still work with the spider tattoo simply by dragging and dropping it in here, and then kind of blowing it up to where you want it. All right. Actually, that's incorrect. You want to drag and drop it into here, not into the scene, but into its own, and turn it up to 300 resolution. Okay, and you want to turn this into RGB color. Press OK. It's going to open it up in its own file. And if you want to kind of make this stencil into your own, you can by simply, and this is only a method, it's not the method. All right, you want to go ahead and click RGB here, and you're going to click on the actual icon. That highlights, or control click. And it selects all the red, green, and blue pixels, which is pretty much the colors, or all the white, And what you're going to do is you're going to go back into your channels, and you're going to press delete, and it deleted all of the white, and which is pretty much RGB because all the colors. That's just color theory. I don't want to explain all that to you. And if you notice here, it did delete some of the transparency, so it's going to be you can kind of see through the blackness of the spider. What I'm going to do now to fix that is I'm simply going to go to edit, and I'm going to go to first off, I'm going to go here. I'm going to put select pixels. It's going to select everything here. I'm going to go to edit, fill, and I'm going to put this on black. If it's not, set that to black. 100% on normal. Make sure you don't have preserve transparency clicked. Press OK, and it's going to make it black. Okay. Now I can still see through it a little bit if we really zoom in there. This is all by your choice. See how you can see the black. If you really want to solidify that darkness, just go ahead and duplicate the layer by clicking duplicate layer, press OK, and then just kind of pressing Control E, or otherwise layer merge down. And then now we solidified the black a bit. However, that also, because when we did select the RGB, We still have the gradient here. You can't really see it, but it's there. But we do have more transparency now. In order to see that what really happened here, because it may look clear here, but when we put it on the face, it's going to have a little bit of a gradient here because you can still see it on the outside because I didn't delete all of the white. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer by clicking this button here. I'm going to drag it underneath the spider. I'm going to go to Edit Fill. I'm going to fill that with white. All right, and when I do that, I'm going to press OK, and you're going to see that gradient now. Now, if you really want to clean up, what you can do is go ahead and select on the spider and go ahead and put your eraser tool, and you can kind of come in here. Oops, put that back in there, and just kind of clean up around the spider if you like. Now that's one way of doing it. That's if you don't have a vector-based program, or if you can't find a decent tattoo and you want to use this site. You can. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're doing this and you're not, you know a little bit about how to find stuff on the internet. You can find PNG spider tattoos, or just spider, or you just know how to make your own. And this tutorial is pretty much this is all pointless. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select M, press M, or select the selection tool here. I'm going to kind of roughly come around where the spider. I'm going to keep it as tight as possible, just in case I missed any black on the outside. I don't want to, I'm going to kind of get in a little closer. I don't want to really risk pulling anything in case I missed any black. So I'm going to go to Edit Copy. All right. I'm going to come back over here. And then I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go to Edit Paste. Okay, and there's our spider. And I'm going to go to press Control T, or Edit Transform. And then hold Shift to keep this thing constrained in proportion. Else, if I don't hold Shift, what happens is I have to kind of eyeball it. But even if I did and I press Shift afterward, it'll keep it in proportionate. So I'm going to kind of bring it up here. Make it just big enough to be on the face. I want to make it prominent because I really want it to show. I'm going to place it there. If I don't know where that's at on the face, I'll just turn this layer on, and I see the left eye and the right eye. And this ought to be a little funny though. Let me go to Move Tool. It's going to move it right in the middle of the eye there. Now that may stretch on the top towards the head, but it could look funny. I don't know. This is just a sample anyway. Okay, and we can turn that off. Actually, if you want, you can even delete that layer. I'm sorry. You can unlock this layer. Clicking the lock here, turning it on, then clicking the unlock, and just deleting the layer. We don't need it no more. It was more of just a reference. Okay, and what we want to do now is we're going to copy this. It's just a stencil. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and click it I press Control, and if you click it on there, you select all the pixels. I'm gonna filter, select, deselect that. I'm gonna right click here and just select pixels to do the same thing, but I'm trying not to use shortcuts. That way you understand where it's at. I haven't cleaned this off yet, so before I do that, I'm going to once again deselect. I'm going to fill this up with black by hitting, if you look right here, black is our background color, so that should be Alt Backspace. Foreground color, our shortcut is going to be Alt Backspace, which is important because it's what we're going to do for this next section. By default, your black and white brush, if you're on the RGB channels, should be black and white. When I go in here, it's reversed. So because it should be reversed. If not, then you can work around it based off how I'm going to teach this here. All right. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to select pixels. I'm going to turn that off. We don't need it no more because that's going to stay that color. And I'm going to go into the alpha channel. And since white is our foreground, we're going to press Alt Backspace. If white is your background, you're going to press Control Backspace. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and select, deselect. And that's our tattoo. Now, because that's the stencil of the tattoo, it's going to stencil out brown, this color. And I put this little kind of pixelation in there because the skin, I wanted to give the skin a realistic kind of bump to it. It's going to stencil that color through the face. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save that file, and it's going to reflect here. So if I go to, I'm going to take care of that, edit, I'm going to go to File, make sure I'm on one layer too. I can delete this layer now. There's no point for it. Yes. and just keep it just like that. You want this to clear background still. Just all we did was change out the alpha, but we use this to kind of reference where we're going to put it first. I'm going to go to File, Save, and I'm going to save it as, because it has an alpha channel, I'm going to select DXT3. You can select 5 if you want, because 5 is more of if you have an alpha channel that's really, it has a lot of color, because this is a very much stenciled. It's pretty, you can use a DXT3. It'll help you save a little bit better on compression and space size and hard drive space. Space size and hard drive space. There we go. Now that we're done, if we go ahead and we re-reference this hair and we go into the texture and we just press reload, bam, there's our spider. And yeah, it's not perfect. You can adjust from here. If you want to be a perfectionist, you can. Nothing wrong with that. I'm always a perfectionist, so you can kind of, you know, bring the tail in, shrink it down more. As I said, it stretches, but this is a good way to preview it without having to actually commit it and go into game and look at it. So I'm going to keep that because I don't want to spend a lot of time fixing it, but if you want to, you can shrink it down and kind of get an understanding of how things wrap around the face. You can just do solid tribal stuff, but that's just how this works. All right. If you're doing bodies and stuff like that later on down the road, this is exactly how it's done, by the way. But it has to be specific for the type of face. If I modify the face underneath and I pull stuff out, this tattoo is no longer going to, it's going to show in parts. Hopefully you understand that without me having to demonstrate it. So now that that's done, I don't even have to reload this game. Well, actually I do because I turned it off. But if you had the game open still, you just got to click on the face, click back on it, and this should automatically reload because it's still using the same texture files. All right. And I'm going to turn that off. Turn that off. Go to game, new module. Going to create character, a human female. Next, zoom in and go back 3 and just go back to the very beginning. So that's the last face. Face 1 obviously still has, oh, actually face 1 and face 2 reflect the same textures. So that is pretty much what you have there. It's a spider tattoo. As I said, I've adjusted the normal map to kind of, you don't, now this is all by choice. See how the tattoo kind of gives off ink. Ink does have a little shininess to it on some people. Sometimes it doesn't. It's all depending on the type of color you make the skin. Now, it's up to you how you want to do that. But if you decide you want to turn off that little shine, that gleam on the tattoo, to do that, all you have to do is go into the material settings here of the tattoo and turn down the intensity. You can make this pretty much 0. And then you can re-export this MDB file, export Neverwinter Nights 2. Just make sure you have these turned on. Mesh is ahead, smooth TS seams, and then this one from down here in the texture flags, cutscene. All right. And what you're going to do is you're going to find out where you have your files. So for me, it's an override. Okay. And I'm going to click mod faces and I'm going to go to female faces, of course, and this one right here, head 2. I'm going to double click. And it's going to override, and keep a note on how you got this little light gleam there. I'm going to click on it and click off of it, and now there's no more gleam. In my opinion, that looks a little more, it looks too dark. It doesn't, it looks a little stampy. Doesn't really take on. Now you can go half on that if you want, by just clicking and hit 0.5. Oops, and I keep clicking 0.5, and you can change the hardness. I recommend that level, but if you understand what you're doing there, you can do that. That's more advanced for those who know how to work with Blender. I'm going to go to export again, Neverwinter Nights 2. Everything should still be saved, and then I'm going to go to recent. It should be up here in my recent files. I'm just going to click this again, overwrite it. Just go ahead and click, just double click that. Yeah, take it on, take it off. Find a way to take it on and take it off. You can just go like that to fix it. And that's 0.5 if you're more happy with that. I'm just going to leave it at that just because I don't want to keep showing how that works. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to sharpen these ears because this goes into the 2-for-1 demonstration I was trying to show you. And actually, since we're on the tattoos, And this is how you know it's live. I'm making corrections on the spot on myself. I'm going to go ahead and show you the other way to get that tattoo onto that face in a much more quicker fashion, because using the Illustrator, if you have Illustrator, is a quicker fashion than doing all of this work around to get that into a PNG. So if you download the file from FreePic, or if you have an EPS or vector of one, or if you want to pull something as a vector, you can, because it doesn't necessarily have to be, it could be anything. I can pull this fish out if I want, take the fish out and use and make that into a vector. That's fine, whatever you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click. I'm going to exit this to save myself some computer space. I'm going to double click this. I'm going to open with Illustrator. Don't worry about that. That's because I have Illustrator issues with my motherboard. And whatever version of Illustrator you're using, EPSs should work, even if it's not Illustrator, whatever program that allows you to view vectors. Now, when I say vectors, what I mean is simply you have vectors, it comes in layers, okay? And pretty much it has the background, and it automatically, see how it kind of takes the spider out? So if I hit V, select V, or hit this key right here, the select key, I select the spider, and it already has it already copied out. That's what a vector is. And by vector, for those who don't know, it's not pixeled, which means I can zoom in as much as I want and it retain a very sharp edge. So this can be blown up into an actual poster or whatever you want. That's the difference between vectors and pixels, is just the way that it rasterizes, or the way that pixels rasterize and vectors don't. Don't want to explain any more than that. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to copy or cut, whatever you want. I'll click cut. All right. I'm going to go to Photoshop here onto this file. I'm going to hit edit paste. And what's going to happen is, because it's pasting from another program, you get this option. It's going, do you want to paste it as a smart object, pixels, or a path? I tend to do smart objects, but for this tutorial, I'm going to do pixels. All right. And we can stretch this to as far as we want, and it's going to rasterize how we stretch it. When I say that is, we can make it as big as we'd like, and it's going to automatically keep sharp edges. Now, once we place it and we edit from there, those sharp edges are only going to be, you're not going to retain those sharp edges, simply because as soon as we place it and hit enter, it becomes pixel based. So this is a one time only. I'm going to select it really big because I want to shrink it down still. Okay. And now we have it as pixels. It's really sharp, but if I try to resize it now, it's going to start stretching out those pixels. All right. So what I want to do here is I'm going to do the same exact thing as I did before. I don't need to reference this, but I'm doing it just because I want to show you the proper method for understanding how this works. As once again, I'm going to bring that underneath. I'm going to place the spider near the exact same location. Actually, I'm going to place it off really small. So I'm going to hit Control T. I'm going to hold Shift and bring this down some and kind of pull it up over here. I don't know. It's going to go through the eye. It gets really twisty around the nose, as we saw. But if we keep it fairly small around the eye, maybe we'll get some better design. You can even make it really small and put it like a little snake teardrop. Okay, so I'm going to delete this now. We don't need this. That was just my reference. And as always, go ahead and select pixels, turn it off, come into channels. I didn't do what I was supposed to have done, so I'm going to go ahead and backtrack. I'm going to go ahead and deselect. I'm going to go into my alpha, and since black is my background color, I'm hitting Control Backspace. All right, going to RGB. Going back into here, select pixels, go to channels, go to my alpha channel, and since everything is black, I'm going to make this visible, and since white is my foreground color, I am going to hit Alt Backspace and go ahead and deselect by hitting Control D, otherwise select, deselect, Control D. Go into RGB, layers, delete this layer, okay, and go ahead and save. And it should reflect automatically. Now, if you want to save it out as a different file, that's fine. It will say you want to save it as day2. Just make sure that you reclone your MDB to reflect that properly, or you go in Blender and actually change out that texture here. You never have to change this one out. This is universal. That's why it says _n, no N1, N2. This will always be the same. You only have to change this out. And to change that out, all you have to do is just write in here day2, and change this to day2.dds, or whatever name you name it, the texture, okay? And then export it that way. Else you'd use the MDB cloner to reassociate it to the new name. But I'm keeping it as day one, so all of that is irrelevant. And in order to see that in our Blender, I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. And it's a smaller spider. You see how it goes there? That actually looks pretty cool. I like that. It looks like, yeah, I like it. I mean, I know it looks very comic booky because who would do that, I guess? I don't know. Some would, I guess. You can also add like blood splats if you're advanced and you know how to do all that or whatever you want to do. This is just for tattoos. You can actually make tribal paint designs out of this by going into like the tribal paint stuff that's in this PSD file in the diffusion. Remember, we have some tattoo options. You can play around with those and see how those work for you. Okay. So now that that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the game. I want to make sure it did it properly, and I know it did, but I'm still doing this because I'm gonna need this open for the next portion anyway. So I'm gonna go through that, bring that up, turn off that. Create character, female, human. I'm gonna go to next, and actually it went on the human this time. It didn't go on phase 4, which was new. Go back 3. Yeah, it went to the first phase. Okay, and I'm gonna turn that on, and then there's our face tattoo. And actually, I like this one better. It's less, you know, in your face, I guess, because the other one was like, bam, big ass spider in your face, like. If this chick did not realize she had a spider in her face, she is very unaware. That, or she really loves her spiders and wants the world to know. All right. So, and the reason why I left them, I like this bald look, is because I wanted to show the Thians some love, because their face had tattoos. They've only had the ones like this, and some select few that haven't been put out in a while. And I know I didn't do for males. I think it's because I just never got around to it. But I promise I will give it some thought to get that done. All right. Now that that's done, I'm going to go into the modeling portion. We're just going to sharpen the ears. I'm going to actually mess up and like maybe pull out the nose some, and maybe pull out something from the eyebrow, so you'll see how that affects the tattoo too. And it'll be like a what not to do. But if you're going to really give this face an overhaul, you're going to have to do away with the tattoo. If you learn how to do the tattoo, which I've shown you if you're advanced, after you overhaul the face and you select the faces, you can still pop them out and then redo your own texture. If you understand Blender, I'm realizing as I'm saying it that me explaining it to you right now is probably going to set you off. So let's just not even worry about that. If you're going to modify this face and you don't understand the concept of how to get this done, do not try it. Do not attempt it, because it requires you to go into UVs and to do some UV stretching options and stuff like that, and it's just going to confuse you. And one thing I've learned about modeling is if you get too confused, you tend to just give up and say, screw it, I'm not going to do this. I hate this game. This game can go to hell, and everybody to do with it. And yeah, not that I've ever said that. Not that I've ever thought that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do as I said I was. I am going to start modeling the face. Now, this applies to both male and female, but since I have the female here, I'm just doing it. I showed you how to do it in the last tutorial just a little bit, but I'm going to now show you how I do it in the game here. And it has to be done in Blender. So you want to open up this MDB file, your head 02, and when you do, as I said, have everything set up, make sure your shadows are set to show, and then turn this off because we're not going to need this anymore. And one thing I also want to do is I want to go ahead and let me backspace. I'm going to select everything. Okay, I'm going to hit W and I'm going to put snap to symmetry. Now, everything's pretty much already mirrored. Up here it says 2500 already symmetrical, but 12 other ones that were mirrored. That's not a huge difference. It just means at some point something got moved on the import or export, and so it fixed it. Now, what that means pretty much is now that we made everything symmetrical, in the engine, it knows that this point is equal to this point. And I'm not pointing on the exact one, but it's giving a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to UVs. I'm going to go to options. I'm going to click X mirror. And what that's going to do is when I pull out this portion, it's going to touch the mirrored portion of it. Okay. I'm going to undo that. And then I also want to make sure that I have, if I'm on vertice, I'm going to face mode. Okay. And I also want to make sure that I have this right here, proportional editing mode. Allows transforms with distant fall off. It says disable. I'm going to turn it on to enable, okay? Now, for the ears itself, you're going to use connected, but I'm going to turn it on to enable, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing around the head here. I'm going to zoom in some, okay? I'm going to pan it over. I'm going to twist again. And I want to get a good angle here. I'm going to pull from the lobe, but I want to pull from the top portion of the lobe, not the exact top, but more of the diagonal. I'm going to kind of select a good amount here. It just has to be like 6 or 8 because this is where we're going to pull from outward, all right? I'm going to press 3 to go on my exact side, all right? I'm going to hit, since this is on, I'm going to hit grab. And if we start grabbing, everything's going to move at once. It's because, as I stated, when this gets turned on, if you zoom out far enough, you press G, you create this circle. And you hit the middle mouse scroll, and you keep scrolling in. And when you're satisfied with your scroll, and if you can't see, just stop it there. But be sure to press escape. You don't want to hit G and then scroll and move it by accident as you're scrolling in and say, okay, I'm fine there. And you're like, oh crap, what happened? Always press escape when you found your zoom to make sure that you didn't, because even you moved a little bit there. If you notice I did that, press escape just to move the circle, but not the figure. And when you get a good angle on where you want to move, then you go ahead and press G again. And then you start bringing it over. Now, see how the things behind it are moving? The head's moving with it. The reason that is because I have here enable on proportional editing, and how that works is anything within this viewpoint. So it's grabbing everything that's within this viewpoint. I want to grab stuff that are just connected to here. So the sphere of influence changes if I click connected. And what that does is now when I hit G, it's only going to move whatever's closest to those vertices. In this case, it's going to start pulling a sphere based off what I'm pulling from. Okay, so pretty much it's going to pull more from this area, and then it spirals out more towards around. Now her ears in this case are really close to the lobe itself, or close to the interconnecting series to the head. So it's going to pull to some degree. So I got to be very careful. So I'm going to hit G again. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit more. And you got to be careful. I'm going to pull it out just about that much. And if we look around the other side, it's pulling too. See? All right. So I'm going to hit 3 to go back. And then once I got it, I'm going to kind of pull it away from the ear from here. And just enough so I can kind of space it away and turn up this influence a little more. See, and if I view it from the front, we're getting this going on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit G again to grab it. And now if I pull it more, it's going to allow me to pull, but it's not pulling from here because the influence is less. It's less influenced based off that radius. Now, this is actually not a good pull. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to hit Control, and on my number pad, I'm going to hit minus. That shouldn't have happened. Okay, so I'm going to hit, this should have been selected too. I'm going to click Control plus, expands, but if I hit Control minus, it doesn't expand. And I'm still going to keep it on face, simply because it's easier that way. I'm just going to select these ones now, because my pull is going to become a lot more sharper. All right, so I'm going to hit grab again. I'm going to grab these out and just kind of pull it out a little more sharper. If I need to pull it like that, and then maybe hit grab again, and then go like that. And then I'm going to hit scale. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start scaling down to sharpen that point. All right. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, because we are going to smooth this out. But if we look on the other side, we have this going on too. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pull it out just a little more, so that way it doesn't have this, like, this weird droopy end effect. Unless you want that, your choice. And then I'm just going to kind of do a tweak now. And to tweak, I'm going to keep it on face mode. But if you're experienced at using vertex mode, you can select one vertex. Like I see that one there poking out. I'm going to pull that in. But for the sake of simplicity and following, I'm just going to select these two, because I want to keep true to the tutorial, make it simple for you. I'm going to kind of pull that in, or maybe straighten it out some. Let's see what it looks like there. Maybe pull it. Up to you. Your choice is your own. And then I'm going to go ahead and select texture to see what it looks like. that's pretty much what we have there. There's our ears. Now, if you want to make them sharper, you can. If you want to smooth them out, now what I recommend is to simply go ahead and go sideways, press Z, as long as you're on a universal sideways, and then go ahead and hold down Control and make a quick little circle around the ears, just like that. It selects on the other side too. And I'm going to go to W, and I'm going to hit. Actually, if you don't have this, I think this is only if you activate a certain thing called Loopy Tools. So if you go to File and you go to User Preferences, and then you were to go to Add-ons, and if you were to type, I think Loop Tools, it should come in. It should come automatically with Blender. Enable Loop Tools, and that allows you to hit W. It allows you to hit special toolbar and view 3D stuff. It just gives you a shortcut. If you have Loop Tools, you're gonna hit W, and you're gonna go to Smooth. All right, and just leave it as is, 0.5 at 1, and it kind of gave it a little smoothing around the ears if you want to have a more smoother ear. If not, it's fine. It helps trying to kind of smooth everything out, and it's usually good, and it won't affect the models. Don't worry about this if you lost some of the details. It's not a big deal. The model it has enough poly to hold off, but it also has enough texture and the bump map to hold it well. And this, yes, is on a higher kind of poly sort of face. It's not the highest poly of faces I know that are available, or the highest poly faces that can go in. I think it's decent for where it's at, but if you want to decimate, you can. That's for you advanced users. Have fun with it. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go to File, Texture, and I'm just going to kind of, I'm going to show you what happens here by breaking the tattoo. And by doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull from here, and I'm going to kind of pull this forward a little bit. And see how when I pull the skin out, the tattoo's not moving with it. All right. Now, if I want that tattoo to move with it, what I have to do is I have to select these two layers. I'm not even sure if I was going to show you how to do that, if that was part of the tutorial. Because it may confuse you, because it's going to show you how to split by materials. And I don't know if that's what some of you want to be doing. I'm going to do it quickly, just for those who are advanced and want to know what it is. But pretty much, if I want to be able to move the eyes and have the tattoo move with the face, I want to compress these two layers together and move them together. And then when I'm done moving them together, I'm going to extract them both on their own separate layers once again. Now, to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the FH Hair 1, and I'm going to grab, by hitting this, selecting it. First, I'm going to enable it on the viewpoint. And I'm also going to select this by holding down Shift. And then the one should be orange and one should be red. You may not see that here because they're both following along the same kind of line. See how one is orange and one is kind of yellow, or one is red. Well, it's supposed to be reddish orange, red orange, and one's yellow. The one that's red is going to go into the yellower one. So, and that's, if I do that, I hit Control J for join. And now that, see how this is all one object now, but it has two materials. And the material, all the information is saved in the materials. If we ever want to extract the two again, all we got to do is select this object, press P or Control P, and go to Shift P. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. So I'm going to go ahead and press Tab. I'm going to go into Edit mode, and I'm going to press P to separate by material. And that's going to re-separate my two materials, okay? And we have the head here, and we got to rename them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again to demonstrate how quick it is. And I'm sorry, the only reason I had to phase out and phase back in there is because I was having some issues with the key not working for some reason, and so I went on for about literally like 2 minutes over the previous version of this video, grumbling, trying to figure it out, and being a little embarrassed that I couldn't get it right, when it's just one of those things where you just didn't prepare for exactly. So now that it separated the two, what it did is it just named it PHHF Head 02 and then Head 02.1. Each is its own layer again, but it renamed the files to basically a 001 version of the head, and it actually gave the head, the tattoo, the dominating head folder name here. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into the material, because it saves the material. It still does, but I just separated them out again after I put them both together. I'm going to press Control C, and all I got to do is hit Control V to repaste it as the object name and the mesh name. And the same would go for the head. I want to take away this 001 instance. And just press Control A, Control C, and rename the head again back to what it was. That stays the same. Okay? And then we're back to normal. Alright? So, as I said, in this tutorial, and I realized I'm about coming close to an hour in, so we're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and put these two together again. If you don't plan on keeping the face tattoos, that's fine. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this one, shift select the head, press Control J. Now that I have them both, they're still, as long as you don't erase the materials, you're fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to press Control 1, and I'm going to go into edit mode with this. And I want to make sure now that I have enabled on. The reason I don't want to have connected on is because if I select this point, I'm actually selecting the one above it. And so if I were to move it based off connected, it only moves just the tattoo because that's connected to it exactly. I want to move everything within the scene, so I'm going to click enable for everything. And when I move it now, it's moving both layers together. All right. Now, this can get tricky if you don't do it correctly because, like, as I said, if you start moving stuff on the eyelashes and eyebrows, you start getting some weird effects going on. And the eyelashes are a little tricky, but I believe you can do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move around the eyes. And to do that, I'm going to simply hit G, set my brush size, hit escape because I never want to select from that. And I'm going to kind of maybe turn this up, maybe bring that in. What you can do too is you can select kind of like, I'm going to turn off the eyeballs. And I'm going to select just a couple of, just a couple of things around the eye, maybe one up here, and that up here. Else, you can go ahead and select this mode and select one around the inner coupling of the eye. All right, just like that. I think that's the eyelash. You want to select back here, and then hold Alt and Shift and select the next one, and it automatically selects. It automatically selects those within a group of it all. See how it selected the eye. And then if I press Control Plus, I'll expand that. Control Minus doesn't. And then I pretty much have the eyeball selected. And with I'm going to turn the eyeball on. And also with this on right here, it should move everything in proportion. All but the eyeball, because the eyeball is in fact on its own separate piece. All right, I'm going to hit rotate. I'm going to set this brush. I'm going to hit R for rotate. I'm going to set this brush. And now you can rotate the eyes if you want to make sharper eyes. If this was an elf, yes, you'd want to make maybe sharper eyes. You pinch it all together, just like that. Okay, you can bring them up and down if you want, up to you. All right. Now, if you do bring eyes down, just remember to bring the eyeballs, to move the eyeballs accordingly, okay? So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to move around stuff here because I want to show you how the tattoo moves with it. You want to be able to move both. Like I said, if you don't want to keep the tattoo as an option, you don't have to even worry about that layer. You didn't even have to connect them. All you have to do is delete that tattoo layer or whatever you like. This also works if you have a beard already attached and you're trying to modify it together. Just connect the two layers and then separate them out at the end by their materials. All right, same thing for horns. Okay, so I'm going to pull this in. I'm going to and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select around the jawline. Okay, just those ones. On one side only, you don't have to do because it's mirroring. And I'm going to go ahead and you can go ahead and pull that in if you want. Up to you, however you want to do it. All right. And then maybe select one here, maybe right there. Straighten out the face. Make that a little bit small and just kind of bring it in upward a little bit. And then just kind of start, maybe select the one right in the middle between both and hit scale. I'm going to come out more, hit scale, and then scale that in, and then maybe pull it down, and then come down here, maybe pull that down. This may take some, I'm doing this pretty fast because I've had some practice with it. Some of you, it may be, have fun with it. Don't try to rush your faces, because faces, once you put them in a module, they're pretty much there forever. I mean, once you start removing faces from the module, players complain, and we know how that goes. So you want to really take your time with faces, and, have fun with it, really. It's kind of, I'm just kind of going with it. I'm just kind of moving stuff around. Now, if you end up doing this and you start going like this, you start going backwards and you start getting some weird effects. Don't want to do that. So try to know that limit. Okay. I'm gonna go on the side, pressing 3, and I'm gonna pick this up, make it big, maybe pick it up there. If I hit rotate, I can give it like a rotating thing. You can also maybe grab the points of the mouth, and if you want to make a bigger mouth, you can. Now this face is obviously not your ideal face, but hey, who knows? Maybe you do like it. Maybe you want it. You know, if you want to kind of do the eyebrows, only stay on one side, as I said. Kind of come around the trace of the eyebrow, and you kind of bring it in. Okay, you can even rotate it, give her some softer eyebrows. All right, now this is not going to affect the textures at all because the textures are already set on the UV map. So nothing is going to change, and if anything, it'll give you some more interesting results when meshing. Now that we've done that, I'm going to keep it as that. I'm going to press A to select everything and select off of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now separate these two layers because I need to make one the FH hair option. As I said, to do that, what you want to do is be in edit mode, click P, okay? And it's going to say separate by the selection. If you only select certain things, that's how, if I selected just like, I don't know, let's say I selected just those, and I hit P and I put separate by selection, it'll make a new object with just those faces, okay? Or those vertices. In this case, what I want to do is I want to put separate by material. So it's going to separate a new object by the material name, which is going to be this one. So separate by material. And now what I have here is both objects here with different materials. Obviously, it renamed them not how we want them, so we want to fix that. So we're just going to go ahead and copy the material name by hitting Control C, and just paste it over the mesh, and then double paste it over the face. Not double paste it. Just double paste it once over the object. You need to double paste it over the mesh if you get this .001 going on. Okay. Same thing for the head. Go into the material, copy that name, paste it over the object, and then paste it over the mesh name once, and you're good like that. And this is pretty much your face. And then you still have your option. You managed to reserve your tattoo if you wanted to, in fact, keep it. And your eyelashes are still pretty good. That's what you want to be able to move them intact. So I wouldn't recommend grabbing it by one point, moving it around, then you start distorting your eyes. So I'd recommend moving the eyes in that method I showed you, or selecting just enough faces where you can move it all together as a whole. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to double check that my shadows are still on, which they are. My eyeshadows. For this, you don't have to have on. You don't want to have it on. You don't want this to receive shadows or send shadows because you're going to get some really shadowed effect underneath. Make sure this is off for this if you're using face tattoos. I'm going to go to File, Export, Neverwinter Nights 2. It's all saved. I have it under female faces, the same. I realized I wrote female wrong in this folder. I put female. Yeah, I'll fix that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and double click off the head. Bring it on up. Close out my Illustrator because that thing is a RAM sucker sometimes. No, I'm not going to save. Clear clipboard. All right. And I'm going to click on the head, off the head, back on the head. And there we go. There's our new face. Now, just test it. The blink seems okay. Sometimes when you move around the eyes, the blink changes. To fix that, it just takes some fiddling. Everything seems okay. Let's toggle the tattoo still there. And we have our original head. Now we have our elven face, our half elf, or whatever you want to name it. And then just to make it half elf in the actual module, all you got to do is clone it out accordingly. And to do that, use the cloner and name it to elf. I'm going to show you how that works by going ahead and go into here, open up the MDB cloner, file, load. I'm going to load that head. I'm just going to name it to a ASMR. By hitting HAF, I believe ASMR is. I could be wrong. Okay, I'm just going to click Save Clone. I'm actually going to save it to an ELF too by hitting EEF. Now, a reminder, if you're going to be doing ELF faces and human faces, to be sure to find the respective skeleton files to associate those with. Like I did the human faces, I put the human skeleton. And I just realized I may have not. I opened up the wrong version. File load. I think I opened it up from the regular one, so that's not the one I want. I'm going to go ahead and delete those quick fix here. Delete. I'm cloning from the wrong head, so it's really not going to do much. I'm going to go to File, Load. I'm going to find the right one, which is under my Quick Access Override, Mod Faces, and I'm going to go to Female Faces, Female, and then I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and then I'm going to go ahead and change it in here. Sorry, my voice gets a little muffled there. I have my finger to my mouth as in the thinking pose. Okay, save, and then I'm also going to go into here, EEF, go to click save as an elf. They're popping up here, but like I said, if you need to grab your skeleton files, to find those files, what you're going to do is you're going to pull them from your where you have, I have mine always on a quick pin, but in your Neverwinter Nights 2 installation, you're going to have a folder called data, and in your data folder you're going to have this little zip file called LOD merged, and in here is where you'll find all of your skeleton files, and the one you're going to look for is PEEF underscore, just like this one, P underscore EEF scale and PHHF underscore scale, and just name them Scale 01, Scale 02. Now you don't need to do that right away. As long as you're within like the first few heads, like up to head like 6 or 7 for elves, you should be able to preview it because the skeletons are already pre-injected into the vanilla file, so it borrows them over. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and reboot the game. Just because they are new files, and since, as I stated in the previous tutorials, when you're adding new content into the override while the game is running, it will not load until the next reload of the game. So that should be lower, and then I'm going to click here, turn it off. All right, go to create character, and I'm going to go to elf and female. And I think it did the same thing. There are different types of elves. Like there's EDF for Drow, EEF for Moon Elf, ESF for Sun Elf, EWF for Wood Elf, and ELF for Wild Elf. That's right. I think that's right. Either way, those are the ones. Maybe not for the right ones. So this is pretty much what happened when we moved it over to Elf. It managed to preserve the eyelashes and the blink, which means everything's pretty much still spot on. And now we have an elven character variant. I'm just going to make her a bard so we can look at her with an outfit on. And that is pretty much how you convert for another race. Alright. These are, of course, vanilla hairs. If you go into a module, you have your own hairs, you can go ahead and do that. Lastly, one thing I want to show you. Actually, I'm going to show you in the extras tutorial is how to fix your hair. And that's in the next tutorial. And that's in extras. You don't have to follow along it if you don't want to, but it's just going to show you how to tweak the textures to better match your skin tones, and also how to add colorable eyebrows if you so want to do that for your mod. Okay? So all in all, that ends this tutorial. I'm just going to wrap it up with this quick saying is thank you for following along all the tutorials. I know it was a few hours put together. It took me a few days to put together. Well, actually, it took weeks. Technically, it took a few months to get everything together. Technically, to learn the operating system, learn all this stuff, it took me literally months because I had to learn all this from scratch. There was really no tutorials out there for faces, and it was kind of like by hit and miss of just, what does this do? I wonder how this works with this. But as I started getting more and more experience, I figured, why not share the wealth and share the knowledge? Because eventually I will move on, and I would only hope that more creators would come out and keep this game alive, since it is a passion for so many. So thank you once again for following along this tutorial. I've shown you all I need to show you. The next tutorial will be in extras, and I'll go over the things that I didn't cover in the previous tutorials, but it's going to be just in case you want to do this or that, and make some options available for you for creating. So, hopefully when this goes on the vault in a day or two, you'll be satisfied. And I do not do customer service for my stuff. So if you ask me questions on forums and stuff like that, I won't respond. I won't, simply because I'm not on them. I'm not on the vault forums. I just post. I try to review comments and add a thing or two when I can. but most often I forget because I'm either playing different video games or doing other real life stuff with my family, or just simply watching TV, man. But I don't play the game as often, and I am not a lore maniac. So if things didn't come out right, or I didn't have things technical into design of stuff, I'm sorry for that. But hopefully, someone else can pick up the project if they need to and add more stuff if they want to. Had fun with this, guys, and I really, 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 really hope it enhances your gameplay and your mods if you follow along with it. So, that being said, have fun, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. Bye.